An ancient love dream. Why do you fade so early, lovely ladies, who give out your love too early, wasting it on wrong unworthies, never to recover fully from mistakes that mark your lives unnecessarily with far too early grown grey hairs? You used to have the loveliest hair in all the world and longest, marking your integrity and freedom, for that is the meaning of long hair, a demonstration of personal freedom, while you still, in spite of decades of mistakes and wrongs and sufferings, have that personal freedom left, and are the same in soul with all your beauty. Once I gave you all my love to never take it back, and my word counts as much today as it did then of all my warmest love and friendship, which still makes us twins of destiny, forever on the quest of new discoveries, of how to win and grow and manifest that love that for some reason never became ours. Transcendence. My poems about you can never do you justice, since you are so inconceivable in your dynamics and mysterious ways that leave all men and minds dumbfounded, failing utterly to comprehend your personality, since your mentality transcends all human thought in baffling contradictions to what anyone is used to. But I understand you and am grateful for it, for behind your sticky surface there is so much love, like some youth fountain never ending in abundance, that ensures me that I cannot lose you, no matter how far I travel and whatever comes between us. Stay with me, my love, like I will always stay with you, our love defying every hindrance, overcoming every distance, turning every difference between us to its contrary. My Tibetan friend, you travel all across the Himalayas as an outcast, outlawed by the occupants and forced in exile since your childhood, forced to cross the snows in winter across passes of 6,000 meters, where the butchers of your country stand in wait, prepared to gun down any refugees who have the unacceptable impertinence to flee their country, occupied by probably the cruelest of the world's autocracies, an atheist totalitarian regime which makes all human life impossible for those who can't subject themselves to anti-spiritualism, enforced fanatical ideology of atheism, the national compulsory political denial of the soul and all its natural demands and needs of freedom. They have destroyed your country, ruined almost every temple, almost every monastery, and burnt most of all your books. 1,000 years collection of handwritten manuscripts. They have reduced your people, those that were not extirpated, to sub-citizens of second rate, if they at all are given rights as citizens, and killed off 1/5 of your population to replace it gradually with Han Chinese, a long-perspective ethnic cleansing, typical of socialist dictatorships, and sterilized an unknown number of your women, and your mothers also, after forced abortions, carried off 240,000 of your ladies, forcing them to slave work down in China, forced to marry Chinese men, who then are forced to populate your country as another link in the methodic long-term ethnic cleansing. How many of you have already been lost in concentration camps, in prisons, tortured to extinction, or abducted already as children to be brainwashed and brought up as Chinese puppet capos? As the Jews keep screaming on and on with every right to every now and then remind the world of crimes against humanity committed by political autocracy, as you Tibetans, Uyghurs and Mongolians never must stop showing up your testimony to the world about the slow but fatal Holocaust that still goes on today and has been carried on for 60 years, by the totalitarian party ruling the Chinese. Min tibetanske vän, du reser överallt omkring i Himalaya som en fredlös, utstött av ditt lands ockupationsmakt, tvingad i exil allt sedan barndomen i snö och över bergspass mitt i vintern på 6000 meter eller mer. Där ditt lands slaktare står redo och beväpnade på lur att skjuta ner var flykting som passerar, som har den oacceptabla fräckheten att fly ifrån sitt land, som ockuperas av väl troligen den grymmaste av världens diktaturer. En tvångsateistisk, helt totalitär regim som gör allt mänskligt liv omöjligt för en var som ej kan böja sig för antisjälslighet. En påtvingad fanatisk ideologi av ateism med nationell politisk tvångsförnekelse av själen med all dess naturliga, självklara frihetskrav. Det har förstört ditt land och rivit nästan varje tempel, nästan varje kloster och bränt upp dess böcker, ett millenniums samlingar av handskrifter och nedklassat ditt folk till andrahandsmedborgare, det som ej utrotats, förts bort och internerats, om de fått ha kvar medborgerliga rättigheter alls, och mördat drygt 1/5 av din befolkning för att småningom ersätta den med han-kineser, i långsiktig etnisk rensning som vi vant oss vid att blivit alltför typisk för socialistisk diktatur, steriliserat ett oöverskådligt antal av endast dina kvinnor, män och mödrar efter tvångsaborter och fört bort som slavarbetare 240 000 kvinnor för att där i Kina tvingas utan lön till äktenskap med han-kineser, för att dessa sedan ska tvångsimplanteras i ditt land som ytterligare en länk i den långsiktiga etniska rensningen. Hur många av er har ej redan spårlöst kommit bort i fängelser, koncentrationsläger och slavfabriker, skrotade, torterade till döds och redan bortförda som barn för att tvångsskolas, hjärntvättas och utbildas till lydiga kinesiska marionetter och fångvaktare och kapos för ditt folk? Som judarna fortfarande högt skriker med all rätt sina påminnelser för hela världen om politisk diktaturs flagranta brott mot mänskligheten, så borde och ni tibetaner och uigurer och mongoler aldrig sluta visa upp era bevis för mänskligheten om vad som idag fortfarande får hålla på i era länder. En förintelse som pågått nu i 60 år, metodiskt genomförd av den totalitära makt som ännu får regera världens största folk. The Forest. This is an old story from 1968 full of symbolisms. Canto 1. 1. Be it far from me to have pretensions to be any kind of poet, but in this world and the other one, I think that anyone would certainly agree there are some things that cannot well be told except by words transcending sense and the conventional reality as we accept and know it. Such things I am here about to tell, a story strange and difficult to grasp, and lacking skills in verse and language, my humility and poor simplicity will hardly be sufficient to describe this truth that nevertheless experienced personally all the way, although I never knew myself some persons that were part of it. Accept it as a humble offering by me, a humble monk, on ancient altars of tradition, beauty, wisdom, and experience, and forbear my innocence and incapacity to render credible such matters that are visible to only sentient human souls, and the mind's eye that sees beyond the lying sensuality of this most insufficient, limited reality. 2. I used to take those morning walks down to the sea as early and as soon as possible after the sunrise, and my abbot gave me leave himself. he knew that exercise would do me good, and not just me, but all my influence on others for the whole remaining day. I used to sit down in the sands, enjoy the rolling waves so generously coming in, sent forth from out there in eternity, to gloriously commit their foaming suicide against the gentle shores, caressing them with tenderness in this eternal process, when an object in the water caught my eye. It was a shining object which the sun had found. Some beams had entered it in glimpses of reflection, which went on into my eye and my attention, striking me with wonder and amazement, for immediately I felt it as a message meant for me. I sat there still with my bare feet all sandy, basking in the glorious sun, as if transfixed by sudden new and strange sensations, as if I already was quite overwhelmed by feelings that belonged yet to the future. Finally I rose to carefully approach the object, overcoming the last doubts concerning its reality. It was indeed a bottle well closed up, quite light and empty, but for something that indeed made all my hairs rise in excitement. There was a letter in it, and it came to me, of all the people on this earth, to me alone, there on the beach, where I had wandered quite alone, exclusively to find this bottle. Naturally, I just had to open it. Here is the letter, in original verbatim, that since then has changed so many lives by opening a world of lives of others. 3. My friend, I pray you do not judge me for my awkwardness in language and expression, but please try instead to understand and to investigate my case and matter, and then judge me afterwards, if I have given you the truth or only fabricated lovely dreams. I am a wanderer, gone totally astray, and facing death approaching in some hours, for the ship that I am sailing on will not endure this tempest. Seeing no chance to survive, I offer all I have of any value, my life's secret, the one knowledge of some consequence that I acquired, to this stormy sea of destiny. The fact is that I once discovered paradise, and I left it as the crazy fool I was. Now it is lost forever for my part, and all that I can do is in my blindness to give directions as to how it can be found again. Just go to Winchester in Hampshire, and to Wynyard, not so far away from there, then follow the old southern road until you pass the ruins of a castle, and then cross a brook. Get off the road and follow that brook upstream, and you shall find the paradise that I have lost forever in despair and foolishness and desperation, following my folly in my life's supremest deprivation. All that I can do about it now is to stand trial by myself and let my life pass on from this life unto God. 4. Thus spoke this enigmatic wondrous letter, anonymously, with no signature, to me, who was unknown to this unhappy writer, shipwrecked now, no doubt, and lost at sea, and dead and never buried. I was totally beyond myself for pity, and committed instantly myself in tears and prayers for the poor man's fate and soul. And although he was dead, and I would never know him, thus he spoke to me in graver earnest and directness than did ever any living man whom I met in my lifetime. 5. My steps were burdened and slowed down by serious pondering and wondrous feelings on my way back to the monastery, and my fellow monks there wondered what had turned me so reflective all of a sudden, and tried teasing me and cheering me with no success whatever. They had to be satisfied with my simple explanation that I would discuss the matter only with our abbot and with no one else. Of course, I did not show my confidential letter. My old abbot, like a father to us all, sat quietly as usual in the monastery garden, busy at his roses, herbs, and other lovely flowers, when I dared approach him, and he saw immediately that there was something deeply serious that had happened to me of some bother. I went to the point directly, showing him the flask and the fantastic letter, and explaining the concern of this new situation. He immediately laid all his brows in wrinkles and was perfectly immersed in the predicament. He understood me wholly and looked serious about it. Finally he spoke, and I was all attention. 6. My son, this is a matter of delicacy that cannot be trifled with. Not only is it a concern of life and death, but it is also evidently the last words and will of someone dying, leaving a most vital message for posterity, which he has committed to the ocean without any other choice, which fortune has placed in your hands, the humblest monk among us of all people. There is certainly a hidden meaning in this matter, and I have to ask you to investigate it. The directions could not be much clearer. All you have to do is just to follow them and see what place, if there is any, this poor outcast shipwrecked sailor talks about. Do not expect too much. There might be nothing in it, but if there is something, you should certainly discover it, fate having put his secret in your hands. Good luck, my son, and I expect you to come back, when you are ready, with at best some very interesting report that even might turn out intriguing. He turned the letter back to me, and I was free to go, entrusted with a sacred mission that, I can't deny, enlivened me with joyful spirits. 7. My fellows in the dormitory turned, of course, quite curious when I packed my rucksack for a journey of some week or so, but I said nothing to them of my errand. But when I return, I'll let you know. But how can I inform you of my journey's mission when I haven't started on it yet, and knowing nothing of where I am going? They were satisfied with that and let me go. And so I started on the first and greatest journey of my life. 8. It was not difficult, but only pleasurable, leaving everything behind in basking sunshine, as the spring was entering triumphantly and light was king all round the world. The walk was nice and long. I passed the site of Glastonbury on the way, and visited my uncle, who was bishop in old Winchester, who wondered greatly at my errand. "Why on earth are you let loose? Don't tell me you've been sent upon a mission." I could only gratify his worst suspicions, and I told him everything and showed the letter, whereupon he laughed his sides off, rattling all his vicarage and Winchester to its foundations, whereupon he let me go, as soon as we had finished a most glorious dinner that would last for days and better than supplies. 9. Thus I went on and followed the instructions of the letter. They were clear enough, and not even the weather offered me the slightest difficulty. I walked swiftly on and found the river and the bridge and started following the brook upstream. I felt the strangeness of this moment of some destiny of truth unknown, and wondered in what fairy tale this wonderful adventure would project me. I was soon enough to know, as gradually the country grew less habited and wilderness grew more apparent, as the brook led me into a forest finally. It was an ancient forest, mainly of majestic beeches, and the prevalent characteristic mood was peace, and quiet of a most inspiring and awesome nature, so as almost some old chapel or cathedral was to be expected somewhere near. And then I came to what I almost felt that had to be the centre of the forest sanctuary, where silence ruled and everything was still, and where the waters of the brook was like a mirror parted in two streams that joined together peacefully and formed a little island. Then I couldn't keep my feelings any more inside me. They freaked out, and I freaked out with them in a most irresistible exhilaration that knew no bounds, but burst out laughing in a joy of universal freedom and release, the like of which I never had experienced before. It was sensational and could not be contained, as if I suddenly had found the formula of world salvation, but could not explain it. I just had to sit down, relax, and laugh my heart out in this greatest joy of bliss that came from nowhere, but replenished, permeated, overwhelmed, and influenced so palpably all life around me that I knew for sure I had to have arrived in paradise itself and nowhere else, directly, manifestly, definitely, and demonstrably. 10. As I calmed down, the greatest miracle of all awaited me. There was a house. It was a small house by the stream, magnificently pretty in its humble aspects, built with love, undoubtedly, with lovely wooden carvings. But what baffled me the most was the apparent fact that someone lived there, and, my heart made quite a leap, was even there at home. My heart made many thumping leaps as I with quaking expectations neared the lovely house, and slowly and more slowly by each step, until I finally dared move the handle of the door. Yes, it was open, and it was not even fully shut. And at that very moment, that most gentle voice was heard that spoke directly to my heart. "Welcome, my friend, you have been long expected." I dared then push the door more open, and there was but one most spacious, comfortable room with some small space for cooking in a corner, and close by the window there was someone sitting in an armchair. I had never seen a more resplendent youth in all my life. It was a young man clad in white, with hair so golden as if he was actually an angel, but he wasn't. "I am Gabriel," he continued, gently to present himself. "What message do you bring? For you must have been sent here, certainly by some one of my friends. Am I correct?" I could not speak a word, but found the letter, which I pulled out of my pocket to present to him. He read it with some consternation, and his brow was bent in sorrow. "Did you actually receive this by a flask?" he asked me finally. I told him the whole story. Then I asked him to tell his. "What do you want to know?" he asked. "Where do you want me to begin?" "My first most thirsting question is about this forest. I feel such beatitude in here. How is it possible? Where does it come from?" "You are not the first one to feel that sensation, and you boldly step right into the main issue here. My friend, relax. You shall remain here for some days as my most celebrated guest, and I shall tell you the whole story. It begins, in fact, with this, our friend, this very man called Manuel, who was the first one who came here, a sailor lost and roaming round the country, fleeing from some fault, some trauma or injustice. He found peace in here and was enchanted by a tiny thing that glimmered in the water, just where these two streams join up together. Go thou and do likewise, watch what you can find, and then come back here and I'll tell you all about it." I was naturally most intrigued, and followed his advice. "11. As I lay down there by the stream and searched into the waters, what I found was something most extraordinary. Shining on the bottom of the brook there was a golden ring of such amazing regularity and charm and beauty that I could not leave it by my sight. And there, I realized immediately, was the whole story. I had to tear myself away by force, return to Gabriel in the house and told him what I had discovered. I could read the story in its beaming force of wonder, but I would prefer to hear it more exactly from yourself, I told him. You were wise, my friend, to keep away from touching it, and your reward shall be, of course, to hear it all, the full account of this most fundamental love story of all, as Manuel read it from the ring and as I lived it through myself, with my own parents and especially my mother. But it is a lengthy narrative indeed, so I suggest we start our session with a cup of tea. Is that all right? Of course, that was the best way of an introduction, so the last thing I did was to protest. He prepared the tea, I had some milk in it, he didn't, and then he sat down and started to recount the most intriguing fairy tale that I so far had heard. The character of his amazing story suited him so well, since he was actually a child of it, with his long golden hair that flowed so generously down his back to reach his bottom, and his simple but so perfectly white dressing that could certainly have matched the clothes of Christ. And this is now his matchless story. Canto 2.